Today, we are talking about the most important word, not just in recovery, but in creating and sustaining a great life. We're talking about the most important word of being proactive versus reactive, mindful versus mindless, happy, healthy, instead of feeling like a worthless piece of you know what. So today, we're going to talk about that word, what it is. And yes, I'm holding out on you. I apologize, but I think you're going to get value in the approach that I'm taking, what the word is, what it isn't, why it's important, and what to do about it through the lens of the systems necessary to create and sustain a great life. And why am I looking at it through that perspective? Because, and for those of you who've been following this podcast, say it with me, we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. So we're going to talk about that word in this context. My name is Craig Pera. I'm the founder of the Mindful Habit System, and you are listening to Sex Afflictions and Porn Addictions, a broadcast to help you create healthy sexuality and a great life. And this word is critical to that journey. I have a challenge for you if you're listening. If you're listening on a platform where you can write in the chat, I want you to guess what word I'm thinking of. And on some of the platforms, I can tell when you've entered the word, and where it is in the podcast. So if you're on one of those platforms, put the word in, because I'm going to first define it by what it is not, what it is the opposite of. And I'm going to do that because this is a word that many men receive as feminine, many men receive as weak. Your first reaction to this word might be, really? So keep an open mind. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've been through my own shitstorm of a journey, addicted to many, many things, including sex, including porn, prostitutes, strip club, drugs. There's been a lot of things that I've been addicted to, and this word is the foundation for all of my success. And it will be the foundation from all of yours success. And I mean that statement for not just for you, the man who struggles with sex and porn addiction, but and the partner of someone struggling with sex and porn addiction. So, as I'm listing what it's not, I want you to think about this from a physiological perspective. And I'm going to get into some of the details regarding the physiology and why this word is so important. This word is the opposite of anxiety. It is the opposite of stress, imposter syndrome, not being good enough. It is the opposite of getting defensive or shutting down, getting angry, using sex or porn or other substances or behaviors to numb, cope, and escape. It is the opposite of the physiology of fear. The physiology of fear, we're talking fight, flight, or freeze. So I want to talk about that for a second. I want to talk about the physiology of fear, and I want to talk about it from the perspective of the systems that are impacted by the physiology of fear, and why this word that I'm going to share with you is so ridiculously important from the individual growth perspective and your relationship perspective. So first, we've got the physiological response to stress. Stress activates the body's stress response system. This is the opposite of not reacting the stress response system. This is the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This is not releasing the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. This word, this skill, this state of mind, this state of being, it is not the opposite on the brain. Right? Chronic stress negatively, fear, fight, flight, or freeze negatively impacts brain structure and function. It is not immune system suppression, but immune system support. It is not hypertension, increased heart rate, elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. It is the opposite of that. It is the opposite of the metabolic effects of the physiology of fear. Because listen, what are you numbing, coping, and escaping from? Stress, anxiety, also known as the physiology of fear. It is the opposite of anxiety, opposite of substance abuse. It is the opposite of unhealthy coping mechanisms. It is the opposite of cognitive decline. It is the opposite of unhealthy metabolic changes. Anyway, the list goes on and on and on, right? This is the word I'm talking about today is the opposite of that. And why is that important? Because people think they have mental health problems, but I want you to embrace the reality that mental health is physical health. Physical health is mental health. They are not separate. They are inexorably intertwined. We may talk about them from a separate perspective, but they are not. So all the things that you're using, porn, masturbation, the stress and anxiety that you're escaping from with this behavior, it is escaping from these physiological harms. Now, obviously you're here because the net negative is your coping strategy, porn, masturbation, orgasm, escorts, phone sex, camming, the list is going on and on and on, and is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, is the opposite of that. And the word is safe. Safe. Safe means you are grounded. You are connected. Your heart races when you get anxiety. This is the opposite of that. Safe is regulating your central nervous system. Safe is using mindfulness principles to regulate your central nervous system so you can feel grounded and connected. And I want to talk about the role that safety plays in the mindful habit system, and we'll look at it through the necessary systems to create and sustain a great life, and we'll talk about safety through that lens. And here's the thing. We're talking, there's two components to safety. There's physical unsafety. So for example, if there is domestic violence in the relationship, if couples are throwing things, not only is that criminal, no matter how angry or hurt one person might be, nothing justifies physical violence. And if you are experiencing physical violence, the best thing that you can do is separate, because obviously it's too volatile. So the separation often calms things down. But no physical violence, really, really, really bad. So there's a physical component to safety. And if the man is cheating, there's a physical component of safety, the threat of a sexually transmitted disease, for example. So there's a physical component to safety. That's obviously very, very important. The safety, though, that I'm focusing on in this program today is emotional safety. Again, I'm defining it by its opposites, the opposites of being stressed, of being anxious, of reacting. It's the opposite of that. It is regulated. It is calm. With that calmness comes the ability to be curious. And so let's talk about it from those different aspects. So the 10 elements or the 10 systems that we focus on in the mindful habit is risk management, self-care, self-esteem, self-control, having direction and purpose, self-leadership or parts management, connection or community connection, accountability, what gets measured gets done, faith or spirituality, whatever that means to you. Last but not least is gratitude. Healthy sexuality is a subset of a number of those categories, but for some people, that might be number 11, healthy sexuality. And this is the lens through which you are, like, where do you have to focus on to create and sustain a great life? These, over the 12 years in my lifetime, these are all supported by data. These are supported by, basic business leadership principles. And it's just really seemed to work for a lot of people over the years. So risk management, that when there's a moment where you're going to experience the physiology of fear, having a red zone or having a plan, listen, we're creatures of habit. When are you most vulnerable? What are you going to do when you're most vulnerable? Right? That's risk management 101. You know that principle probably for your business. You need to apply it into your life. That's one place where you can create safety. And for you guys listening, safety is critically important in your relationship. I'm going to get to that at the end. That is important. And that is not what this is about. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about you emotionally and physically regulating. Or no, we're not, we're talking about the individual, whether it's a partner, whether it's you. What can you do to not suffer these physical ills that are literally going to destroy your life when you get angry, when you shut down, when you are stressed, when you are reactive versus proactive? This is like a call to action because it's so hard. Because it is so hard. And that's one of my favorite expressions is choose your hard. A shitty life is hard. A great life is hard. Both are hard. So to live a great life, to not live in reaction to your stories, to not repeat the patterns of the past and counter the overwhelming momentum of that DNA plus environmental programming plus the combination of the two, that automatic instantaneous reaction. And here's the thing about the word safety. There's a way to frame it with your partner where there is no blame. There is no blame. There is a reality that when this event occurs, this is how I react. These are the thoughts that I have. This is how it feels in my body. There's no blame. That's the beauty of this. Or one of the really not only is it important for obvious physical and emotional reasons, and you can frame it in each of you, husband and wife, there's a capacity issue. When you react that way, you really can't help it. So bringing attention to the word safety creates capacity. Knowing when you are going to be unsafe and having a risk management plan to do something when that event occurs, that's creating capacity. Second, self-care. You have to be healthy, eat well, sleep well, hydrate, exercise, practice mindfulness. This is back to choose your hard. These are things that are critical if you're going to effectively regulate your central nervous system and not react. So, taking care of your body, making small, attainable goals in your fundamental 5, eating, sleeping, hydrating, exercise, and practice mindfulness. A teeny tiny goal will help you react less. And not one of these things is going to solve every problem. Just doesn't work that way. But if we can get 1% here, 0.5% here, 2% here, you create identity change. You create change that is sustainable. So self-care facilitates safety. If you have an internal critic that has you beating yourself up and you are constantly in that space where you are fearing rejection, fearing failure, ultimately, why is rejection bad? Why is failure bad? Because what happens when you're rejected and when you fail, you will be abandoned. So if you're in that state, that is very physically unhealthy, right? That is unsafe. Safety is having self-esteem. I'm going to be okay no matter what. I feel good about myself. I've done the work on myself that has convinced me that there's only one way to get results, and that's feeling good about myself. When I fall down, I get back up, right? So self-esteem is where another avenue or another space to create safety. You got to feel good about yourself. Number 4, self-control. You could also call this distress tolerance or in the moment mindfulness. This is you cultivating a plan to respond to your triggers. Because where does unsafety come into your life? It comes in through a combination of triggers, events that your life experienced that you react to, where you default to telling the stories that you tell in your head. The good news is you can create a trigger response plan. Check out my other videos. We talk about the trigger response plan. That is your in-the-moment response. It is critical because you are not going to get rid of your triggers. You are not going to get rid of those negative thoughts. In fact, the more you try to get rid of them, the worse it gets because of that which you resist persists. So cultivating and developing distress tolerance skills gives you more self-control, increases safety. Number 5 is direction and purpose. And that means that another critical component of creating a great life is having direction, knowing where you want to go and why you want to get there. Now, what the data says is that having that direction and purpose increases longevity and increases well-being. So I'm not aware at this moment in time of any acute impact it has. However, knowing the impact on the systems that it does have, when you have that direction and purpose, that contributes to other systems in your life that make it easier for you to regulate emotional and physical stress. So direction and purpose is also important. Number 6 is parts management. And that's the skill set where you develop, where you learn how to manage these different parts of you. So there's a reason why your addict part does what he does. There's a reason why your liar hiding part does what he does. If you know nothing about parts work, get the book, No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz, and read it. It is the future gold standard in psychotherapy and high performance for a lot of people. I say not everybody because different people apply to different things. I found this model to be revolutionary in how it sits on top of the mindful habit system and how it helps clients create a model that teaches them to manage their parts. Well, one of their part is the stressed part, is the anxious part, is the fear of not being good enough, fear of rejection part. So managing those parts will help you emotionally regulate, also known as feeling safe. Having connection and community, being vulnerable, being able to talk to someone, a group of people, and say something that you're embarrassed to say, that is the opposite of unsafe. That's safe. You can cultivate that. You can develop that. You probably need a community where you can be vulnerable with other people who are going through the same thing that you're going through. It's why, so I do one-on-one work, I do group work. The one-on-one clients, they got to do the group. Even if they don't want to, they almost always start the program like, no, we'll just focus one-on-one, don't worry. But within the first 6 weeks, I'm able to articulate the value proposition. Hey, look at this study. Look at this for longevity. Look at this for long-term success. Community is so important. It accelerates safety. It creates that vulnerability. It also facilitates accountability. It is where clients practice being safe and sharing things that they might otherwise would never share. So another system that's impacted and contributes to safety. Accountability, to the extent you're creating accountability on managing stress, fear, anxiety, also known as feeling unsafe. Accountability is another important system that you can use in your life to create safety. Second, number 9 is faith and or spirituality. I know that means different things to different people, but brothers, when you are connected with that Holy Spirit, when you are connected with your divine, when you are in that state of mind, and maybe for my secular brothers, when you're grounded, connected, grateful, curious, right? For my IFS brothers and sisters, when you are in self-energy, that is safe. That is safe. So faith and spirituality is another important system, scientifically proven to increase well-being, be happier, work through problems better. Another place for there to be safety. Gratitude, number 10. Last but not least is gratitude. The half-full principle is a way of life. It is a habit. It is a belief system. When I am in a state of gratitude, I am safe. I am safe. And for me, my background and experience with violence and not feeling like I had control over my body, having those sexual experiences at such a young age when I did. I've also come to realize that I was groomed by a priest who was in charge of the altar boys, and which is really, really just confusing to me because my recollection is safe. He was warm, he was kind, he was loving. I didn't get to the other side of this. I got warm, kind, and loving, but I remember the touches, a little more touching but it was safe. So anyway, it's really, really weird in me. And for those people listening, the greater the trauma, the greater the mental health issues, the greater the addiction for you partners, the greater the wound, the more important safety is. And in fact, a relationship model that we use at the Mindful Habit, and you can find us on the website mindfulhabithelp.com, is this 3-layer cake for relationships. The 3-layer cake, the recipe for a great relationship is this 3-layer cake. At the bottom of that 3-layer cake is safety. You can't come close to creating the environment necessary for level 2, vulnerability, being able to share, being safe to open up our hearts, safe to share when you're down, when you're confused, when you're sad, right? It all sits on that foundation, and that principle is true for men, it is true for women, it is true for the relationship. I would say the same thing applies for the individual, how safety is so important. It is also that important in the relationship. Because at the bottom, you've got safety, physical safety, emotional safety, although inexorably intertwined, cannot be separated. Although there are, anyway, I gave you that example already. Vulnerability, and on top of that vulnerability is intimacy. In intimacy, we're not talking just sexual intimacy. We got a spectrum here on this top row. From the left to right, we've got non-physical intimacy, non-sexual physical intimacy, sexual physical intimacy. There's a spectrum. All of that sits on the foundation of safety. And men, just a quick note to you brothers, it is why betrayal trauma is so ridiculously, horribly painful to our partners. It literally breaks their heart, literally causes physical damage, okay? And it is because your spouse thought 2 + 2 was 4. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And my husband is being honest to me, especially around something that I thought was so important to him, that I thought that I know is so important to me. This does not compute. This is not the reality that I know. Betrayal trauma. The partner feels unsafe. It's why she tries to control, it's why she's holding on to that certainty, because she feels so unsafe. You have got to make her feel safe. And if you search for emotional safety on my podcast or YouTube channel, you'll find a couple of the videos that we did on this concept from a relationship perspective. So safety is at its core the foundation to not reacting, the foundation for emotional maturity, the foundation for physical health, emotional health, and I would argue spiritual health. I would argue, as a lawyer, I'll take that case any day. I'll take that case any day. Brothers, I know it's not a masculine word. Pay attention to those parts that might be getting in the way of you embracing that as a reality. And if you don't like that word, you find another word: chill, not reactive, grounded. But I invite you to connect with safe. Look at it through the eyes of your children. Look at it through the eyes of your pets. Look at it through another perspective to help you realize, and if you're medically inclined or scientifically inclined, look at the impact of unsafe. Read about the physiology of fear. We went over a little bit today, but you got the point after the 10 different systems in the human body that are impacted by stress, anxiety, also known as the physiology of fear. If you are numbing, coping, and escaping, what are you numbing, coping, and escaping from? Treat the root cause. I hope you got value in this broadcast. Treat the root cause. I hope you got value in this program. If you are struggling, if you need more support, visit mindfulhabits.com. My name is Craig Pera, the founder of the Mindful Habits System. It is a great honor and a great privilege to have you along for the ride. And thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening. If you are struggling, if you need more support, seriously consider my core training program. It is the lessons. It is all those systems that we talked about today. It is how to operationalize all those systems in your life to be successful in a practical way. And we have a weekly webinar every Wednesday. We guys get together, guys ask me questions, I give them feedback, guys connect with each other in the chat. And if you use the coupon code podcast off the core training program, now this is just a core training program, you get 35% off. If you use the coupon code podcast for the core training program, you get 35% off. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.